Hello and welcome back, future scientists. I'm Mr. K with Mississippi Public Broadcasting. We're going to continue our lessons today talking about the science portion of the ACT. What I wanted to do over the next couple of days is take a look at those practice passages that we did a couple of days ago. We're going to look at the questions that go along with them and walk through how we got to the correct answer. Now, I did this by myself the last time I saw y'all, but I'm going to give y'all a little bit more responsibility today. So here's what I want to do. Let's go through each question, and working together with your class, I want you to justify the correct answer, just like I was doing last time. I want you to explain why the other answers are not correct and explain why you may have gotten the question wrong. Okay, so as we're going through these, y'all are going to work together first, and then once y'all have gone through passage 2 and you've justified the correct answer and talked about why you may have gotten the question wrong, then y'all can come back to me and I will walk through it with y'all again. Okay, it's going to be important for y'all to practice doing this, because if y'all are walking through and looking at the questions, talking about how we got the right answer, why you got it wrong, that's going to help you when you're taking the ACT further down the line. Okay, when you're talking about why you got the question wrong, it's okay to just say, I was running out of time and I had to guess. A lot of the questions are going to be like that. A lot of people don't have enough time to answer all of the questions, so you're probably guessing on a lot of them, but that shouldn't be your answer for all of them. Some of them you may had enough time to review it, but you just got to the wrong answer, and that's okay. But through this process, you're going to get better at finding the correct answer. Okay, so go ahead, look at passage 2 of that test that we took. I want you all to take some time, look at the questions that go with passage 2, see if you got them right, see if you got them wrong, see if you can justify why the correct answer is the correct answer, and talk about why you got the question wrong, if you got it wrong. Then when you're done with that, come back to me and I'll walk through passage 2 with y'all and we'll see what we can kind of come up with, okay? All right, everybody, I'm sure that didn't give y'all any problem, but let's go ahead and hop into it and see what everybody came up with. All right, so this is passage 2. This one has a couple of different things going on. We have a couple of graphs, we have a diagram to go along with it, and a short passage to read as well. So there's a lot of questions that are going to require you to look at the diagram or the tables, just a little bit of everything for this passage. So let's go ahead and get into it. Number 8 says, if another trial had been performed in experiment 2 and 450 milliliters of liquid had been measured in the cylinder, the temperature of the Diet Coke in this trial would most likely have been. Those are our different answer choices, but we should have gone with J, greater than 60 degrees Celsius. This question evaluates your ability to extrapolate data from the provided experiment results. In experiment 2, as the liquid volume decreases from 598 milliliters to 476 milliliters, the temperature increases from 10 degrees Celsius to 60 degrees Celsius. Since the new trial involves 450 milliliters, which is less than the 476 milliliters in trial 8, the temperature is expected to exceed the 60 degrees Celsius recorded in trial 8. Therefore, the correct answer is greater than 60 degrees Celsius. When you're looking at tables like this, you might not have time to find all the information that goes along with it, but one thing you're usually going to get questions about are trends. A trend is a pattern that the data is trying to show. This has a very strong trend going on. What's happening is that as you get less and less liquid in the cylinder, you can see that the temperature is going down for each one. So the more liquid you have, the lower the temperature is. You can use that information to answer this question, okay? It's giving us a value that is not on the table, 450. If you look at table 2, you're not going to see 450 milliliters. But you can use the trend that is established, less liquid, higher temperatures. You can use that trend to answer this question correctly. Because when you have less liquid here, the temperature's going up, this is less liquid than anything in here, that means it would be a higher temperature that's anything in this column. So that's kind of how you can answer these questions. If it's asking you a question about a trend and you have to extrapolate or kind of use that to make a prediction, the trend is going to stay the same. They wouldn't throw you a trick question like that. So it's really important to find that trend and continue it past the graph in a certain sense so that you can answer these questions correctly. Great job. Let's keep it going. All right, here's number 9. 9 says, suppose trial 6 had been repeated, but the bottle of Diet Cola had been opened and then left undisturbed at 25 degrees Celsius for 12 hours before it was attached to the apparatus. Would the mass of CO2 produced in this trial likely be greater than 0.969 grams or less than 0.969 grams? There are our answer choices, but we should have gone with C, less, because over the 12 hours, the concentration of CO2 in the Diet Cola would have decreased. This question evaluates your understanding of a hypothetical scenario where Diet Coke is left open and undisturbed. When the bottle is open, CO2 begins to escape from the soda, leading to a decrease in its concentration over time. As the concentration of CO2 decreases, the amount of CO2 measured would also be lower. Therefore, the correct answer is C, less, because over the 12 hours, the concentration of CO2 in the Diet Cola would have decreased. Now, in the passage, it tells us that the cola, you take the top off and then it's immediately clamped, or the tube is immediately put into it. This question is saying what would happen if you just left it open. Now, this is one of the rare scenarios where the answer cannot be found directly in the passage. This is actually requiring a little bit of outside knowledge to do. I think almost anyone would know that if you opened a soda and left it on the counter for 12 hours, when you came back to it, it would be flat. But that's not really described anywhere in this passage. So that's just a little bit of outside knowledge that you have to bring into it. And it seems kind of odd that that's what they're asking the question about. This question is really about experimental design. It tells us that a freshly opened bottle is used in this experiment. So that's part of the experimental design. It's asking you to predict what would happen if it wasn't a freshly opened bottle. And like I said, most of us know that if you leave a soda on the countertop for 12 hours, it's going to go flat. So that's kind of how we got to the correct answer here. Okay, great. Let's keep it going. Here's number 10. 10 says 1 millimole of CO2 has a mass of 0.044 grams. How many trials resulted in the production of at least 1 millimole of CO2? Here are our answer choices, but the correct answer is J, 8. This question checks your ability to determine the number of moles of CO2. Given that 1 millimole of CO2 equals 0.044 grams, any trial that yields at least that much of CO2 produces 1 millimole of CO2. Since all 8 trials resulted in more than 0.044 grams of CO2, the correct answer is J. So again, this one, the important information is in the question itself. They're not assuming that you know how much a mole of carbon dioxide weighs. They are telling us what the mass is. It's 0.044. Then we take that information and look at these two tables and try to determine how many of the trials produce that many moles of this CO2, right? Well, you can see if you look at these two tables, all of them are more than that. All 8 trials performed produced at least 0.044 grams, and that means that all 8 of them produced at least 1 millimole of carbon dioxide. Great, let's keep it going. Here's number 11. This says, according to figure 1, which of tube A and tube B, if either, had at least one end submerged in a liquid before the clamp was removed? Those are our answer choices, but we should have gone with B, tube B only. This question checks your ability to analyze a figure correctly. In the image to the left there, tube A is not immersed in either the liquid in the bottle or the liquid in the jar. However, tube B is fully immersed in the liquid in the jar. Thus, the correct answer is B. So this is a figure or a diagram. What's going on here is you really didn't even need to read the passage or find any data in the table. It's just asking you about these tubes. And you can find that information just by looking at this picture here. If you look really closely, you'll see that tube B is submerged in the water in the jar, but tube A is not submerged in liquid anywhere. So that means that tube A is not submerged. So our answer here is B only. And we figured that out by just examining the picture. And again, it tells us in the question, according to figure 1. So we didn't need to read anything. We didn't need to examine the tables. It tells us exactly where to look. It says in figure 1, you can see that this picture is labeled as figure 1 right here. And so by just looking at this, you can answer that question. If it tells you where to look, that's where the answer is going to be found. So don't waste your time by reading the passage or looking at the tables. It's going to tell you exactly where to look and where to find the answer. Great job. Let's keep it going. Here's the next question. This is number 12. This says, is the relationship between the volume of liquid in the cylinder at the end of the experiment and the mass of CO2 produced a direct relationship or an inverse relationship? Those are our answer choices, but the correct answer is F. It is a direct relationship. As the volume of liquid that was measured in the cylinder increased, the mass of CO2 produced increased. This question tests your ability to analyze trends and data from table. In experiment 1, when the liquid volume increased from 525 milliliters to 699 milliliters, the CO2 mass also increased from 1.02 grams to 1.36 grams. Similarly, in experiment 2, the liquid volume rose and the CO2 mass increased as the amount of liquid increased as well. Based on the consistent trend, the relationship between the liquid volume and the CO2 mass is direct. Therefore, the correct answer is F. Again, so if you look at these two tables here, we want to be able to identify the trend that is happening. Here's the column that's talking about the amount of volume in the liquid. As this number increases, the amount of CO2 produced increases as well. You can see that the smallest number of volume for the liquid is 525, and that's also the least amount of carbon dioxide that was produced. And that trend continues down here as well. As one number in one column goes up, the number in the other column goes up as well. So this is a direct relationship. What this is telling us is that the more liquid in the cylinder, the more CO2 was going to be produced. Okay? Great job. I just have a couple more here, so y'all hang in there with me. Here's question 13. It says, consider these steps that were performed in each trial. Removing clamp, measuring liquid in cylinder, inserting a solid substance into tube A, attaching tube A to a bottle of Diet Cola. According to the procedure, these steps were performed in what sequence? So it's our job, again, this is mostly a reading comprehension question. It's our job to figure out what order these steps occurred in, okay? So the correct answer here is B, 3, 4, 1, 2. This question assesses your understanding of the experimental procedure. According to the passage, the steps unfolds as follow. First, a solid substance is inserted into tube A. Tube A is then connected to a bottle of Diet Cola. Afterwards, the clamp is removed, allowing gas or liquid to flow. Finally, the liquid in the cylinder is measured for analysis. So based on this sequence, the correct answer is B. And all of that information can be found right here in the bottom part of that paragraph. Again, it's telling us, it's giving us a hint where to look here, because this passage is explaining this diagram, this figure down here. So when we're wanting to know the order that this happened in, if you read the bottom part of that paragraph, that's where you can find that information. Okay, great work. Y'all, I have one more question for this passage, so let's make sure we're looking at this and see what everybody came up with. So 14 says, assume that room temperature is 25 degrees Celsius. And how many trials was the Diet Cola tested at a temperature lower than room temperature? There are our answer choices, but the correct answer is H, 5. This question assesses your ability to gather and interpret data from tables. In experiment 1, all 4 trials were conducted with Diet Cola at 3 degrees Celsius. And again, that tells us in the description here in experiment 1, you can see it circled there. In experiment 2, only trial 5 was carried out with a temperature below 25 degrees Celsius. Therefore, with 4 trials from experiment 1 and 1 from experiment 2. A total of 5 trials occurred below 25 degrees Celsius. So you really had to go hunting for this information. In table 2, it's kind of easy to tell which ones happened at what temperature, because there's a whole column that's telling you what the temperature is. To find this part out, there's no information in the actual table itself that it says anything about temperature. So you had to just look up here in the description. That would be my hint, is that if you can't find it in the table itself, it's probably, the information is probably in the description right above it. The last sentence of this experiment 1 says, the Diet Cola was at 3 degrees Celsius. So that means that all 4 of these trials in table 1 was at 3 degrees Celsius, and only 1 in table 2 was below 25. And that gives us a total of 5 happening below 25 degrees Celsius. So y'all, thank you so much for following along with me. I hope this is making sense. I hope we're seeing how to get the correct answer, why we're getting it wrong, and in the long run, I think this is going to improve your score because it's going to kind of make things faster for you, okay? So thank you so much for making it today. Your teacher has some other work. Make sure to give that your best effort, and I hope everybody has a great day.